The NFL season kicks off in about 3 hours.
I'm Tony Kornheiser. My bedtime kicks off in about 4. Yeah.
Okay, to be precise about this, it kicks off about 40 minutes after. Can you get through the first quarter? Over, under for Kornheiser.
Yes.
Quarter of NFL action before sleep.
I'll get through the first half. I will get through the first half. Welcome to PTI. Yes, I will. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Blue Jays are streaking, the Ravens are hurting, and the Big 12 appears to be replenished. But we begin today with tonight's opening game of the NFL season. Dallas, as an 8.5-point underdog, goes to Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay. Wilbon, let us get right to it. Are you more intrigued to see how Brady and the Bucs perform or how Dak and the Cowboys do?
Brady and the Bucs, home. And it's not just because they're champions. I would be interested in almost whoever the other team is, the opponent, playing the Cowboys. Because the Cowboys are a whisper. The Cowboys are now 100% hype because they haven't done anything in a couple of decades. They either don't get to the playoffs, all right? If they do, they play one game. They have made no runs deep in the postseason. They are not relevant by New Year's Day. Okay, New Year's Day, fine. They play end of a regular season. By mid-January, the Cowboys are on vacay. They're in Cancun. So I'm tired of the Cowboys. I know that everybody at every network, including this one, loads up on Cowboy conversation. The Cowboys have been worthless. I'm not talking about their popularity. I'm talking about their ability to be a factor on the field. They're nothing. So I am interested in Tom Brady. I almost said the Patriots, the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I would love to disagree with you. I will not disagree with a single word you said. I am personally dacked out by now. I've heard years of talk about will Jerry give Dak his money? And then the last few weeks is, will Dak's shoulder be okay for this? The hype, and I'll just talk about this network. The hype on this network is unbelievable for a team that they are allegedly Super Bowl contenders. They have not won the Super Bowl in this century. Okay, they have not done it. The other guy has won it 7 times by himself. I cannot even believe that people talk about Dak Prescott at the expense of Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback in the history of football. He's doing something last year at 43 that nobody ever did at that age in football, in basketball, or at baseball. This is going to be, Mike, his 300th regular season start, and let me get the number correct. He is 230-69, and we're talking about Dak Prescott? I mean, come on. That is ridiculous.
Tony, it could be Tony Romo. We could keep going back in time with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, people can be fascinated if they want.
Because Aikman won Super Bowls. Aikman's legit. He won Super Bowls.
Aikman's nearing 40 years ago. I mean, 30 years ago, for real. But Tony, this is what, when people say how great the Cowboys fans are, the Cowboys fans are whoever can find a bandwagon with the colors and a foam finger. They're not great. They're overrated. Their team is overrated. The statement of what their team is overrated. The nickname America's team is preposterous and outdated. To hell with the Cowboys. I'm
going to give you one small fact.
I like Dak Prescott.
One small fact here.
What?
Tampa Bay returns all 22 starters. Remember how we talked about UCLA returning 20? They return all 22. The last Super Bowl champion to return all 22 was the 1979 Steelers. You know what they did? They won the Super Bowl. That was their fourth in 4 of 6. They won the Super Bowl.
Just deliver me from the Cowboys. My God. The already limping Baltimore Ravens, a big limp, suffered unreal setbacks during today's practice. The team fears starting running back Gus Edwards, the latest starting running back, tore his ACL, which will put him out for the season. Baltimore had already lost fellow running backs J.K. Dobbins and Justice Hill for the season. And Adam Schefter says the team also fears it may have lost cornerback Marcus Peters to a torn ACL in today's same practice. It's a practice from hell. Tone, where does all this leave the Ravens?
Well, as they say, it leaves you up a famous creek without a paddle at the moment. This is an amazing circumstance to be in. This cluster of ACL injuries. This is the number one running offense in all of football, and it is not now. Because now what you have is Lamar Jackson, who is at risk every single time you ask him to run more than you should be having him run. Or you've got Le'Veon Bell, who was great, but it's 4 and 5 and 6 years ago. You don't know if Le'Veon Bell, if he gets promoted to the big team, you don't know what he can do at this point. This is the identity of the Baltimore Ravens in the last 25 years is two things. It is defense and it is ball control. You cannot control the ball without a running game because your quarterback is not a 300-yard-a-game passer, and your defense isn't as good as it was when it was great. So I don't know where it leaves them.
Tony, it seems like it leaves them having to make some massive adjustments strategically. You mentioned what the Ravens are. It is not only what they've been since Lamar Jackson, it's really what they've been the last 20 years. You know, and they've won a couple of Super Bowls, and they've been an exciting team and a playoff team. And so Jim Harbaugh is going to have to, do some tap dancing here. He and his staff.
Jim Harbaugh would be something. John Harbaugh.
Yeah, John Harbaugh, excuse me. Thank you for that. Tony, this is despair land. I mean, you lose this many guys. Your number one running back, then your number 3 running back, then your second running back, and you lose a great defensive player, apparently, who you paid a lot of money, a couple of years ago. And Tony, one other characteristic of the Ravens I'm going to mention, in addition to the two that I agree with you on, physical toughness. The Ravens, that's part of what they are. They want to show you they're bulletproof. You can't hurt us. And now you have a practice, to quote Allen Iverson, that takes your team out. Wow.
Okay, so let me just add this right here. And I'm not trying to demean anybody, but you have this cluster of ACL tears. Does that go to coaching? Does that go to training on any level? Should that be investigated? Or is it just horrible luck? Is it just horrible luck? Maybe that's all it is. But you ask yourself, what happened here? What happened?
Look, you and I live 30 miles down the street from the Ravens. We're aware of what they are, what they think of themselves, and what people think of them. Wouldn't you list them, if you were just listing the toughest teams, and they're all tough, but if you're listing the toughest teams in the league, wouldn't you have the Ravens in the top 3, 4, or 5, if not higher?
I would always on that list have the two rivals, the Ravens and the Steelers. They would be in my top 5. Always.
Yes.
Always.
Unbelievable. Let's move to baseball, where the Blue Jays are suddenly looming behind the Yanks. Toronto beat New York for the 3rd straight time last night and is now a game and a half back in the race for the second wild card spot. Add in the Mariners, A's, and the Sox, and we've got 5 teams battling for 2 slots, all within 3.5 games of each other. Tone, which 2 would you like to see make the season, the postseason?
Well, the Yankees are the biggest TV draw, and Boston is the second biggest TV draw, so baseball would like to see them. But the Yankees lose all the time now. Joey Gallo, let me get the number.
Well, they lost like 8 of 11
with the Yankees.
now?
Yeah, I think it's 9 out of 11. Giancarlo Stanton's got 1 home run in September, so they lose all the time. The Sox lose all the time, too, and yet they have gained ground on the Yankees. Since the All-Star break, I believe, or maybe it's the trade deadline, they're like 25 and 26. That's not a playoff team. So what objectively are the better stories? Well, Toronto's a better story. Toronto are nomads at this point. They started out in a spring training ballpark in Florida. They went to a minor league park in Buffalo. They didn't get into Toronto till the end of July. And they're playing great right now. They've got Kevin Biggio. They've got Vlad Guerrero Jr. They got Bo Bichette. They got Suns up. They're a better story. Seattle's a better story. They got the longest playoff drought in North America on team sports. It's 20 years. Nobody knows anybody on that team. Nobody would have picked them to even be 500. At the trade deadline, they wanted to kill their GM. Those are the 2 best stories, Mike.
Wow. This is a Elizabeth, I'm coming to join you moment for me. That you passed on the I-95 pillars. You passed on them because my 2 are your 2. No one watching this show who has followed anything about us for 20 years would think we would come up with the same answer on this, Tony. But I'm with you. In Toronto, it revolves mostly around Guerrero. It just does. I mean, he's in that group of young guys at the top of a big group of young guys. He's so exciting to watch. I wind up now clicking over to watch Serrano, hoping I'll catch him at bat if I'm surfing. And Tony, Seattle, they haven't been this good since A-Rod and Junior Griffey. I guess Junior Griffey was on that team. It's been 20 years at least since Seattle made the playoffs, and they've had the longest drought of any team in North American sports.
No,
so
look,
those are my two as well.
I mean, it's an interesting question. Who do I expect to be in? I expect at least the Yankees or the Red Sox to be in, and maybe somebody else, or maybe both. But the better stories, if you're writing stories, are a team that hasn't been in 20 years and a team that has no home. Those are the better stories.
Well, and by the way, Tony, real quickly, the A's, I hate the A's because I hate the whole, Moneyball junk overstatement.
You don't like Billy Beane.
But they're an exciting team to watch, Tony.
Yeah,
and
but
so
Mike,
if I'm going to slot a third.
Nah, they get in every year and they lose early. What's the word? What's first?
When it officially approves 4 new teams tomorrow, the Big 12 will be blank.
It will be afloat, not face down in the water like it is today, but afloat. They got kneecapped when Texas and Oklahoma said they were leaving. They got pushed to the side of the road when the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the ACC formed an alliance and left them out. Now they're adding 4 teams. Houston and Cincinnati are basically basketball schools. BYU gives you a foothold in a mountain time zone if that's what you want. Central Florida gets you into Florida, but behind Miami, behind Florida State, and behind Florida, obviously, to me, all they're doing to me, Mike, is they're justifying their name as the Big 12, and they're adding a bunch of cars on the back of a slow-moving train. That's all.
God, you killed them. I'm going to seem complimentary compared to that. Tony, it means that the conference is temporarily relevant. And we're going to discuss it because they got movement. That's what happens. You get a couple of days, but their movement is too close to Saturday. So they don't even get more than a 48-hour, reprieve, if you will. They're on life support anyway. I like to watch the quarterback at Cincinnati. I mean, I liked watching him last year. But by the time those teams, of course, actually start playing that conference, he won't be there. He'll be in the NFL. I temporarily relevant, real temporary.
2 words. Spoiled meat. What's next?
Jamar Chase's preseason drops are blank.
They're troubling. Reportedly, he dropped the last 4 that he got in games, and then he dropped a lot of things in practice. Look, they drafted him number 5 to Cincinnati because they wanted to reunite him with Joe Burrow. Because at LSU, Joe Burrow threw 20 touchdown passes to Chase in 1 season. 20. That is Randy Moss land. Okay? Now, Chase was asked, what's the difference with the ball? And he said, the ball is bigger in the NFL and it doesn't have stripes. And then he said, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying that's what the ball is. Well, I would say to him, number 1, if the ball's bigger, it ought to be easier to catch the ball. And number 2, this is the Duke, son. This is the one that Jerry Rice caught. That's what the money's for.
Tony, remember, those 20 catches he had from Joe Burrow were in something we like to call college football. And then he didn't really play last year, so we're talking rookie-licious. That's my word. Tony, you and I have covered camps with teams where some rookie, would come out and you say, oh, this is a big bonus, baby, and he couldn't perform, and veterans would walk past us going off the field saying, I don't know about this guy.
I'll give you a name, but I'll give you a name privately. I'm not giving that name out publicly, and you know that name. You know that name.
We feel like, hey, this is a runaway Super Bowl team. Well, a lot of things can change. If Aaron Rodgers makes one different decision in an NFC Championship game, then maybe, we're looking at the Bucs entirely differently here. So I don't think hunger is going to be the problem. I think not being able to repeat the good fortune of last year is going to be the main problem, and they will not.
I don't know when this
Also, I will say this, though. Yeah. This is probably why Bill Belichick kept everything quiet. Because when your coach is saying, hey, might be the best season ever, you're setting expectations a little too high.
L. Duncan, there are no expectations that are too high for you. Please, go ahead. This is this is the worst day of the year for sports pundits because you either pick against Tom Brady and you're proved to be a moron, or you pick him and people call you lazy. So you're really damned if you do and damned if you don't in this situation. I actually disagree with Frank. I don't think Tom Brady is motivated by simply running it back because he's already done that. I think Tom Brady is motivated to go perfect. It's the only thing he's never done, right? It's the only thing he's never done. That is frightening. But I'm going to die. I'm going to die on this hill because I have been saying this for months now, even on this show. Yes, the Bucs got better, right? Because they are healthier despite being the healthiest team. They lost O.J. Howard. Antonio Brown now apparently looks to be good. Tom Brady apparently moving better because he had knee surgery. And they didn't have COVID last year, as Bruce Arians said. But I'm going to die on this hill. You have to get better to repeat. You can't stay the same because of attrition. The Chiefs got better. So, no, I don't think that they are necessarily better team, and I don't think they're going to win this game.
Lasky back in.
What else said? That's it. That's it.
Phil, you had a big lead to start. Now you're going the wrong way. The Dallas Cowboys also appearing tonight. And like usual, anything is possible with this team. You could say 11 wins, 30 points per game offensively, and yeah, maybe. You could say 6-9-2, allowing 40 points per game on defense, and you say, sure, whatever. Al, when will we know, and what is it going to take for the Cowboys' best possible season, and what's the risk for another dud season?
When will we know? We'll know that the Cowboys are for real when they finally frickin' win it. I mean, they're smoke and mirrors. This team is we're going to do what we always do. We're going to fall in love with Dak Prescott the first few weeks of the season, despite him coming off that injury. Because since QBR became a thing in 2006, there are only 3 other quarterbacks that are as good or better than Dak Prescott the first month of the season. They are Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning, and Tom Brady. What's the common denominator? They all have rings. So Dak and what he does doesn't really mean much for the Cowboys. At least that was what the numbers will tell you. I think a good measuring stick is going to be next week because this is going to be a game where they are overmatched. Let's just be real. But a Chargers team is sort of like the Cornish hen to the golden goose that the Bucs are. But
wait. How did you already get to Cowboys-Chargers week 2? Frank Isola, talk to me about the Cowboys' big picture this season, and when will we know?
Yeah, L's buddy Dan Quinn now running the defense. I think the defense will be fine. I think Dak Prescott will eventually be fine. Let's remember, he hasn't played in 11 months, and he didn't throw a pass in the preseason. So here's a guy who got a huge contract. We know all the pressure when you're going to be the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. I think the break that they get, the division that they're in, isn't great. Washington has a chance to maybe win it, but I think Dallas should come through. They might be 9-8 and win the division, for crying out loud. But I'm not expecting too much of them in terms of playoff success. Regular season, they'll be fine, but I don't think this is a big time.
You heard Frank kind of gloss over, though. Oh, Dan Quinn's running the defense now. They'll be better. Israel Gutierrez, is that how you see it?
They have better players.
Yeah, absolutely. There's 2 things that really factor into what the Dallas Cowboys are going to be this year. One is Dak Prescott's health and his ability to play like his old self. And 2 is this defense, which was historically bad last year. Now, they addressed it very, very much so in the draft and in free agency. And if they sort of project to be even an average or slightly below average defense, and if you project then a slightly diminished version of Dak Prescott, let's say, for the course of this season, that still has them projected at like 10, 11 wins. And so you forget how good Dak Prescott was, how much he made up for what that bad defense was. So if they become somewhat even close to mediocre, and again, they would almost have to be with all the improvements, I think that with the help of Dak Prescott, this offense can absolutely hold its own, average somewhere between 26 and 30 points a game. The pieces are all there. We just need to make sure that he's not overcompensating with the ankle and hurting that shoulder.
I'll get back to you in a second. Plashke.
Yeah, you said with the health of Dak Prescott. That's a huge question mark, Izzy. Yes, I think defensively, Micah Parsons with Quinn, they're going to be better defensively. But offensively, remember last year they scored 11 fewer points a